All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. I am obviously Carter. We got a kind of special episode for you guys today. I'm going to be bringing somebody on here in a minute that's a little bit of a Northern Ohio football legend and kind of has been in the coaching world, give you guys a little more coaching insight. I'm just going to bring him on and talk to him a little bit and get some of his background for you guys and just talk a little ball and things like that. But first things first, it's a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday night. We got some action going on. Andre will be joining me here in a little bit so that we can get to it with all the action Notre Dame game and just talk everything ball, man. It's been a good week and looking to get to it. So, first things first, though, I do want to introduce this guy, and I'm going to bring him on here. His name is Arlune Culler. He's a longtime assistant coach, head coach. He's been around different programs. He played football at Walsh University, University of Akron. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, just get some information and just ask him some questions and get some insight into the world of college football. So let me go ahead and add him here real quick. All right. I think we got you. Arlune, how's it going, man?
Going good. Yourself?
Good, man. I can't complain. It's a, nice little hump day Wednesday. Get things moving here. How's your week going so far? Everything good, doing good? I know you're busy with football season, everything like that going on.
Yeah, can't complain. Like you said, it's Wednesday, midweek.
Yeah.
So
yeah, gotta finish the week strong, get ready for a big weekend in football. Now, where are you currently coaching right now?
Yeah, I'm actually not coaching this year.
Oh, okay. My bad.
My last season, last year I was with St. Vincent St. Mary, and I took this season off, from coaching altogether. I have a, two sons. My oldest boy is a sophomore. He was playing at St. Vincent St. Mary, but he's at a different school now. So I'm just taking time to, watch him at the same time, invest in both my boys so far as their athletics.
Okay, awesome. So your oldest, you said, is a sophomore?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Awesome, and he plays ball?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Awesome. What position is he playing?
Well, to be honest, he plays everything but O-line and D-line. But,
okay. He's kind of a jack of all trades.
Yeah, skill position kid, primarily running back and defensive back, cornerback.
Awesome. That's cool. So you were at St. V's last year, you said. Now, correct me, there's a Buckeye who's the head coach at St. V's now, right?
Yeah, that's actually as of this year. They hired Duran Grant. He was the coach.
Yeah, Duran Grant. That's right.
Right.
That's right. I couldn't remember who it was. That's awesome. So a little bit of background on you. You grew up in Canton, right?
Correct.
The home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Football is in your blood. That's that's the mecca of football in Ohio, in my opinion. Stark County, up there in Northern Ohio. What did you played high school football, obviously, and then, as I said, you went on to Walsh and then University of Akron. I know you and I talked a little bit, but just a little bit of background on kind of your high school career. You were a linebacker, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So as a linebacker, what did you experience and kind of what was your high school career like? Do you have any memories that really stick out as far as big games or big moments and kind of how that happened for you?
Yeah. So I came in the era. This was actually in the 90s, early 90s. And my senior year was 1993. I had the pleasure of playing for and, honored of playing for a head coach by the name of Bob Cummings, legendary coach around here in the Canton area, Massillon, as well as he coached up at Iowa University. And, one thing I remember from Coach Cummings is it was business. It was business.
Mm-hmm.
When you stepped on his field, it was one thing that you understood is it's time to go to work. And so as a linebacker and young linebacker, I had my first playing opportunity as a sophomore, and, it was by default. But I remember our coaches always preaching, you have to be ready at all times, and you never know when your number is going to be called. And when your number's called, either you're going to show up or you're going to fold. And I remember getting my first opportunity against Lake High School. They he ended up, I think he was all state, Matt Christopher. He was a a nice running back, linebacker, went to Ohio State University following Lake, but our starting linebacker went down, and they called my name, and I'll never forget, we're at Lake High School, man, the lights is on, and you're a young sophomore, you hear your name called, and for a moment there, deer in headlights, but after that first play, I said, hey, man, this is what I practice for. This is what, you go through Pee Wee, middle school, everything else to get to that point. It's either you bend, you fold, or you show up. And I think I had the opportunity of showing up as a young sophomore.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's reminds me kind of my first opportunity to play. I went to Dublin Kaufman down here in Columbus, played for a coach by the name of Mark Crabtree, who sent a bunch of guys from Brady Quinn to Notre Dame, and Mike Adams and Jake Stoneburner to Ohio State. So I played with a bunch of great athletes in a similar situation. My early on in my high school career, got the opportunity. I played strong safety, got the opportunity to come into a game late after an injury and some things happened. And man, that first play, you're right. It's like deer in the headlights. Like, oh boy, this. The lights are on. It's Friday night. Like, we were playing a team from up north. I believe you might know them. It's what's their name? Lake Catholic, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
We were playing Lake. Yeah, exactly. We were playing Lake Catholic. And I was my first play, man. It was a rough play. They threw a little. I was playing strong safety. I was supposed to come down and cover the flat, and I got my eyes in the backfield, and they threw an out route to my area. Caught it, bad play. Immediately, I was like, man, got to get this together. Next play, they ran an option play. I ran and blew up the pitch, man. Knocked the ball out, picked it up, took it 65 yards for a touchdown. And I was like, all right, now I'm in it. Now I feel good, right? You get it. Just takes one play to get you in that mindset, right? And as soon as that happened, you get the ball moving. You stop thinking so much when you're a young kid. And I think especially at the high school level, but even when you get some of these young kids that come in the college level, right? You get a kid that comes in for an injured player who's a freshman or a sophomore, and they're playing at Ohio Stadium in front of 105,000 people for the first time. Man, you're thinking, and it's hard to play football when you're thinking. Right? Like, you just got to play off instincts, reactions. You got to know, you got to trust yourself. And so that was that's a cool story, and just resonated with me, because it's the same thing I went through, man. Like, you just go through that moment, and then you get your feet under you and you start to just play. And so I guess, like, dealing with, like, we talk a lot about Notre Dame, and I don't, if you haven't followed Notre Dame much this year, specifically on the defensive side of the ball and the offensive line, they've had a lot of injuries. And so they have a lot of young players, freshmen, sophomore, that have been thrust into starting positions on a team that is fighting for a playoff spot, that's trying to go to the college football playoff, trying to make a run at a national title. And they're being thrust into this position. As a coach, how do you try to get somebody ready for that, but also make sure that they know that, hey, you just got to play free. Like, if you're overthinking, if you're playing too stiff, it's going to go poorly. So how would you get your players ready for that situation?
Yeah. So I think all that starts day one, and it starts when you're not even on the field, is creating that mentality. The mentality as a unit. I call my linebackers leaders by choice. LBCs is what we call them. So the thing is just understanding your role and your responsibility, but understanding the mentality that comes with that. And, as a unit, we did everything together for our pre-warm up, for our individual session of practice. We do everything together. And then when we separate out and, starters, and then you have scout team, et cetera, I put the challenge on, the reps matter. And at the same time, you never know with the reps that you're getting when your opportunity is going to be called. At the same time, you try to sprinkle players in where you can, those players in where you can, maybe a player or two here, player or two there. And, I hate to say it in today's day, maybe it's the wrong thing to say. Some young kids, I have to put them in a position, and I'm going to use the term, to get them rattled, get them in the mix, get them in the trenches, let them get caught in the wash a few times, and let them learn that way. And to see how good it doesn't feel, to be in that position, find out and put to connect those dots of what you've been teaching so far as the knowledge, the mental part of the game. Because, I'm a firm believer that the better mentally you are prepared for the ball game, you could be the most, freak physical specimen on that field. But if that mental piece is missing, you're lost. And so as best mentally prepared as you can be, get them in that position that they understand that you can save your body and you could play very well, but you play that mental component of the game. And I think for young players, that's something that actually starts with the off season. And when I say off season, of creating that mentality and having them understand it's not about, the pitchers, the fans, the band, the parents, and everything else. It's about you on that field. And are you prepared? And are you prepared to play a game that actually is going to take probably more mental of you than it is physical?
Yeah. And that's interesting you bring that up, because we talk about college football as a whole, but we focus a lot on Midwest college football because that's where I'm from. That's where we are from, like Ohio. Ohio football is just, in my opinion, different than other states. Like it just is. But you bring up the mental component, and it doesn't matter if you're a freak physically, if you don't have that mental edge, which brings me to a player that I don't know if you've gotten to watch much of, but there's a player at Ohio State right now who is probably one of the biggest freak athletes in the nation, but he just can't put it together on the field right now. And I think it is exactly what you're talking about, where he looks lost on the field a lot of times. And it's CJ Hicks. If you know anything about him, he was a 5-star athlete coming out of high school, one of the biggest prospects at linebacker in the country. And I mean, you watch him in practice, you watch him test, you watch all this stuff. He's a freak. He should be out wrecking games. But when he gets in the game, mentally, there's just a disconnect where he looks lost on the field. He doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. And this is year 3. So he's not even a young player anymore. But it's just having that mental acuity and just being trained and understanding. And that's where I go back to, you want to react, not think, right? You don't want to be thinking about what you're supposed to be doing. You want to react, because reaction's a lot quicker than processing. So if you know what you're supposed to do and you don't even have to think about it, you can react to that so much quicker. And with freak abilities, if you can react, you're gonna be a game wrecker, right? And so, how would you? Let's say you had a young kid that is just a freak physically, but he just can't quite put it on tape on the field. Like what steps can you take as a coach to just really give him either extra coaching, extra time, or like, what do you think? Or does it come down to just some players aren't able to mentally put it together?
Yeah. And I think, with young players, you got to start from scratch. We can take an assumption to say we see a player play and the player looks good, but we don't know how that player has been coached. What coaching has this player had? What did this player understand? And then the other thing is with our system, is this kid going to be able to understand and retain what we're trying to teach in this system? And so, with a young player, I think the first thing is finding out where that kid is mentally with the game of football. I understand you're physical and I understand you possess these skills, God-given abilities, but mentally, where's your IQ so far as the game of football? And with that IQ, you also got to measure within your system, with our system, where does your IQ fall? Because, I'll say, for example, a kid may come in as a linebacker, but depending on, where that kid is mentally, maybe in this system, linebacker is too much for that kid. And maybe we got to move that kid to a different position. I remember one of my first years at St. Vincent St. Mary, we had a kid who, honestly, you look at him, physical specimen. And, I'm asking this kid about linebacker and, it sounded good. It looked good a few times we put him in. But once we start running our plays, the plays that we needed him to execute on Friday night, this kid couldn't get it. And so me and this kid had a conversation about him playing comfortably and confident. And we found out that if he's thinking too much, that physical specimen that we saw, that now disappears because this kid is not able to play comfortable. And so we end up not having that kid play that position because that, position is probably one of the more complex in our defense with the things that you got to possess so far as the knowledge. And so we end up having him on what we call not freelance, but more of a free position where you're playing off of other players and it's more responsibilities versus complex.
Yeah. And that fits perfectly into the CJ Hicks conversation because he's gotten in a little bit of hot water with some of his media responses recently because they've asked him about it. And he said, just rush me. Just have me rush the quarterback. I'm a freak when it comes to rushing the quarterback. And it's like, yeah, well, you're playing inside linebacker. That's not exactly your responsibility unless you're blitzing. And so it might come down to where this kid might be a freak defensive end or a rush edge player, but he's just you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and I would say, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I would say linebacker and now with today's defenses, linebacker and safety are the two positions where you have to have the highest football IQ, because you guys are calling the defense, you guys are reading the offense, you guys are making all the checks, doing everything that goes into setting the defense. And if you don't have a guy that has that, and I don't, let me first say, I'm not saying CJ Hicks doesn't have a high IQ or doesn't have, that football IQ. I don't know. I'm not in the locker room. I'm not there. I have no idea, but it just looks that way on film. And if he doesn't, I think that you'd be better served putting him at a position where he doesn't have to think as much, right? If you have him as a rush end where his only responsibilities, and not to get too simplistic because defense is more complex than this, but if his only responsibilities are set the edge on the run game and rush the quarterback, that's not much to think about, right? You just got to make sure you force the running back to the inside if it's a run and get after the quarterback if it's a pass. That's as simple as you can make it. And obviously I understand there's more scheme and things that go into it, especially with Ohio State's defense with Jim Knowles. But it just that's the kind of stuff that as coaches, you obviously have experience doing this, and you just gave a perfect example of it. But I just thought that was an interesting, you brought it up and it just clicked immediately. There's a freak athlete and you just got to figure out how to use them. And sometimes it means taking them out of the position they thought they were going to play and putting them in a position to succeed, right?
Yeah, if I can add, Carter, too, because you said something I think is interesting for the listeners, is that, that comment from Hicks, just put me on the edge, let me rush. Okay, I get it in your world and the way you play football. That feels good. It looks good. But the thing is, and, I have a theme I would tell my linebackers is play your play so that the play can be made. And what that means is if you execute what your role is in this defense, then the ultimate goal in the end is for us to have success as a defensive unit. So you have to play your play so the play can be made, because it may be designed for another player to make that play. And so it goes into today's culture of players. A lot of players think that they're not playing the game of football unless they're making 1,000 tackles. And I'm just exaggerating, but you got to be the standout with the tackles, the yardage, and everything else. But they don't understand that if you see a technique sound and high football IQ individual setting the edge on the defense, and they're causing every play to force inside, or if not force inside, the bounce, and basically we call that spill play, and that player execute that, then honestly that player is maybe one of the most effective players on the defense, because they're performing their role at the level that we need them to, so that play can go to who needs to make that play. And that's what players don't get sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a linebacker I played with that, he broke records for most tackles in a season, right? And like had all the stats, everything like that. And he would always say, he'd be like, dude, the reason I'm able to make those tackles is because the people in front of me, the defensive line specifically, they play their responsibilities so well that it forces the running backs and the wide receivers and everything to me, and I make the tackle. And it's not always, and a perfect example of this, and this is something I get into a little bit of a heated debate with some people NFL wise, is some people want to give Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns some flack, or some say he's not as good as people say he is because his stats don't match up with like TJ Watt and stuff like that. And when you look at it though, he doesn't get the sack numbers. He doesn't lead the league in sacks every year, but he leads the league in pressures. He leads the league in every statistical category of impacting plays without getting the statistical numbers. And that's because he's playing his responsibilities so well that other people get the statistics for him, and he's able to impact the game at such a high level. That's why you have and that's why you get difference between coaches and fans. You talk to a fan, they're like, oh, TJ Watt, best defensive player in the NFL. You talk to coaches, they're like, if I can pick one player, it's Myles Garrett. And it's just because he impacts it in such a different way. Now, don't get me wrong, TJ Watt's a phenomenal player. I'm not saying he's not. But it's just, that's where the difference between being a superstar that's just stat driven and being a guy that goes out and plays your responsibility to make the unit successful is sometimes more important, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I love the conversation. I look forward to having you on more. But I just want to kind of get a baseline with you and kind of introduce you and everything like that. But hey, I appreciate you coming on, man, and we'll set it up again. And like I said, we'll have to do some cool things because I love having coaches on. My brother coached at Ohio State for a while, and so I've watched film with coaches, and just the way coaches watch film is so interesting to me. So that's one thing where, like, if I can get some all 22 film and just throw it on and have you kind of break it down and just tell me from a coach's perspective what you're looking at, I think that would be something interesting to do. But we'll keep in contact, man. It was great meeting you, great talking to you. I appreciate everything that you did and your insight, and we'll definitely have you on again soon. All right, man?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Take care.
Yep, absolutely. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right, so that was Coach Culler. He's a great guy. Everybody that can get on, if you are in Northern Ohio, he's a little bit of a legend up there. So listen to what he has to say. But we got Duke joining us now, and we're back to our regularly scheduled show and everything like that. Duke, how's it going, man?
No, what's up, Carter? Just enjoyed Coach's interview. I thought that was really, really good. A good addition to the program.
Absolutely. So going to try to reset the show real quick, and then we'll jump into it. Obviously, if you're out there watching on YouTube, I appreciate you. Get in the chat. We had David Williams right here. Yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about. It's not all about five-star players that are freak athletes. Sometimes you just need dudes that have that dog, right? That have that relentless effort, great attitude, smart kids, and everything like that. And that's why I tell people all the time, especially when it comes to the hog mollies up front, right? The offensive line and defensive line. I don't put a lot of weight into their star rating. Give me dudes that can learn. Give me dudes that can learn a system and play hard. But yeah, join us in the chat if you're on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, hop over to YouTube. Get in the chat. Hit us up with some questions, some comments. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the bell notification so we can let you guys know when we're going live. We go live pretty much every day, 7:30 p.m. and then on weekends during the season. But Duke, how's your week going, man? It's Hump Day. Happy Wednesday.
Oh yeah, it's going well. Just getting ready for the weekend to come up. Going to be at the Clemson game, Clemson Pitt. Then hitting up the Steelers game. So on the Saturday stream, these guys are going to be flying solo. So I'll be out and about doing that, and then probably
he'll be hitting the town in Pittsburgh. Don't worry, he'll be going to the South Side.
Yeah, we'll be hitting that up. So
just don't get stabbed, all right?
Yeah, and gonna link up with probably most likely Ron from Best Damn Media.
Oh, nice, good.
Yeah, so gonna be hanging out with Ron a little bit. So we got that going. One of the things that you did bring up that I wanted to bring up was the video of Austin Ward.
I wish I had it cut up for us. Let me see if I can find it while we talk about it real quick. But the CJ Hicks video is what you're talking about.
Yes, the CJ Hicks video. Like,
yeah,
I am not a media savant by any means, but at what point did you think that was a good idea?
For which person?
We're gonna get to the CFP rankings after this. We got a couple of quick news notes, and then we'll get there. Well, it's after a game, and like it looked like he was shooting like B-roll or something, and then he like stops and is like, "Let's go talk to CJ Hicks." Like, at what point do you think that's a
here? I got
good
it. I got
idea?
it right here. Let me. Yeah. So here, let me throw this on the screen here, just so everybody, if you haven't seen it, I know certain media outlets were asked to take it down and things like that. I do happen to have a friend at one media outlet that did not take it down. So we'll go ahead and throw it on here. Hold on, let me get it right here, and I'll even give him a plug. You know, I like the guy. I guess I'll give him a full plug, but let me get it thrown up here. But yeah, the CJ Hicks, this is interesting interaction here. And so let's.
That's a lot of pizza. Ain't nobody else in there? Hey, what does it feel like to get on a blitz?
How does it feel to get on a blitz? Is blitz like a horse's name? How does it feel to get on a blitz?
I mean, it's hard. You know?
Oh, that's me. You're probably wondering.
Stop it there. I mean, come on, man.
What?
So,
Like,
yeah, go ahead.
I had seen that and I was just like, oh no. As soon as I watched it the first time, like I thought it was something that like maybe Chris and Ron made.
No.
like they cut and edited and it was like AI or something. Nope.
No.
That is a
that
real
was
video.
the real deal. That was the real deal, Holyfield. So yeah, so a little bit about that. I mean, Austin Ward telling somebody that's a lot of pizza is just funny. I mean, that's that's just ironic and funny in its own sense. And then how's it feel like to get on a blitz? Like, and obviously CJ, they cut some of it out, but CJ didn't respond in the best way or whatever. And I think it's interesting that that Jerry Emig and the people over there at Ohio State had Austin Ward and them take that video down. And then obviously the media was told before Ryan's press conference this week that there would be no CJ Hicks questions that would be answered. So I don't know if you heard that, but yeah, they were instructed not to ask questions about CJ Hicks specifically, which is just like, and I know, so obviously that's Zach from Menace to Sports. That's my brother. And so he talked about it today and he's like, the thing is like, since when is it the media's job to control what the kids do? Like, that's not like, not even that Austin Ward asked a good question. It was this dumb question. How does it feel like to get on a blitz? Like, what? Okay, dumb question. But
I haven't watched
yeah.
I haven't watched what Zach said, but my thought is that this is what happens when you give those guys all this access.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did CJ Hicks didn't put that video out? Ohio State didn't put that video out. Austin Ward put that video out. Why would you put that video out and think that that was a good idea? That wasn't a good player interaction because it was almost like the Snoop Dogg interaction when that dude kept on asking him, "Hey Snoop, what do you think about the national anthem?" And Snoop Dogg says, "I'm gonna hit you in the head with a fucking football." That's that's pretty much what it was.
Yeah.
Like,
so yeah, I mean, ultimately. And stupid interaction, stupid by both parties. I mean, stupid of Austin Ward to put it out. CJ Hicks needs to be talked to about how he handled that. Like, you have to know there's cameras everywhere.
I'm not gonna defend CJ Hicks on this one, but he probably didn't think that it would ever get published because he said something dumb.
You gotta learn, man. Everything you do is on video. You are a player at the Ohio State University. It's all on video. And yeah, you're right. You might trust Austin Ward. That's a bad decision. You shouldn't do that. But I can promise you, like, when and this is not the first time he's had a recent media interaction that should be handled internally. Like him talking about how they need to just put him on the edge and let him rush. Like, listen, I promise you, and I know this for a fact because it came from a source that was on staff, when Ezekiel Elliott went in front of the media after the Michigan State game in 2015 and said, "Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why we didn't run the ball more. I should have gotten the ball more." They didn't go to Austin Ward or to Clay Hall or to, Tim May or whoever asked the question and go, "Hey, why'd you ask that question? Why'd you post that clip?" They went to Zeke and Urban told him, he's like, "Listen, you're not wrong, but we don't fucking say that in front of the media. That's something you say to me. That's something we say in-house." And it's stuff like that where these players need to be held accountable and need to learn how to interact with the media, especially if they want to go play in the NFL. You're going to have to do media availability. You better get good at it.
Also, on another note, while we're on this topic, Jerry Emick stinks at his job. He is bad.
We all know that. Jerry needs to I think Jerry is on his way out. If Ross Bjork has any set of balls and knows anything about this. I mean, we could put the Heisman odds up. I don't have them in front of me right now, but I could get them just like that. There's people with Heisman odds that are way better than Will. Will Howard's not even on the list. I mean, you can
I know.
scroll
He's
and scroll. And he's got a better deep throw percentage than like fucking Cam Ward. And he's got a better completion percentage than Quinn Ewers, who's on the list. I mean, you can go down the list. And Ryan was actually asked about that. I don't know if you saw that. Ryan was asked about having a Heisman candidate and why they don't have a Heisman candidate. And Ryan just basically said, first of all, he said, of course, the coach thing to say, we're not worried about that. We're not worried about individual accolades. That's not what we're here to do. Understood. Yes, we all know you're here to win championships. Fuck individual accolades. But your players might like some of those accolades. I mean, yeah, they want to win a championship first. And I bet if you asked Will Howard, would you rather win the Heisman or win a Natty, he'd probably say Natty because he's been a well-coached person. But then he follows it up with, we probably don't have anybody with the stats to win those awards right now, which is not false. They don't have anybody with the stats to win it, but they have somebody with the stats to be at least in the conversation of best odds to win it. Like, yeah, I don't think Will Howard should be invited to New York right now. I don't think I don't think Quinn Ewers will be. I don't think Carson Beck will be. I don't think a lot of the players will be. But they still have better odds in Vegas than Will Howard, which is just a media PR thing. But he's not wrong in that. But you absolutely have somebody that you could talk up. And you could go to the Biletnikoff odds, and the fact that Jeremiah Smith isn't even on the Biletnikoff odds list, like that I know his stats aren't there, but he's still. I'm just saying, like a good PR guy should get them on the list.
At least get somebody in there for the conversation, and and also whenever I think about, not to pivot back too much on the CJ Hicks thing, the fact that he put that out, I mean, I'm not surprised. But no, I mean, when you're the number one water carrier for Ohio State, and you have parents getting you NIL merch, and then you miraculously get an NIL deal with the same company, it's just that's what it is. But it's the most Austin Ward thing ever, and he might be credentialed media and all that stuff like that. But the thing of it is that I can say whatever I want. You can't. That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, and to a degree, I mean, he's not going to lose his credentials because of this shit, but no. But yeah, I mean, I think it's stupid he put it out, but whatever. If you don't want stupid shit put out there, don't say stupid shit. I mean, at the end of the day, the media can do whatever they want. Now, do they? No. They obviously listened this week when they were told not to ask about CJ Hicks, and not a single person did, which I think is bullshit. Don't tell me I'm the media. I should be able to ask about pertinent information. Don't tell me you can't ask about CJ Hicks. Motherfucker, if CJ Hicks is pertinent, I can ask whatever I want. It's a press conference. If you want to say we're not going to answer questions, I want it on the record that you're going to say that.
Well, but then again, that's the whole credential media dog and pony show, because if you ask the wrong thing or you ask something that they don't want to talk about, they'll just yank your credential, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, which is why you'll probably never see me with a credential.
That's why
at Ohio State, that's one of many reasons why I will never have a credential. But
anywhere, it's like. Yeah, that's the one thing I do like about the SEC media, especially LSU's media. Yeah. They got after your boy last week. They got after him.
Do you know how much money I would pay just to have an LSU credential for like one day? Just one day.
They were like if you go back and watch his press conference, it was a bloodbath. It was
good. It should be. You just got. I can't say the words I want to say. You just got bludgeoned. You just got it was literally like you were in the Coliseum, and they brought out Gladiator, and he had his arm tied behind his back, had to fight a fucking lion. You were given every advantage, and you still lost. And then Brian Kelly stood up there and was like, I don't know.
It was, oh yeah, he had to stand up there and take every question. And at a place like
Good.
at LSU, Florida, a lot of these other spots, they don't. Oh, you can't. We're not answering questions on that. No, that's the difference between some media outlets like they I mean, taking people's credentials. I mean, they would do it at Indiana all the time. If you asked Tom Crean something he didn't like, they just take your credential.
Wait,
They do
you
it.
mean go ahead.
The Big Ten's is pretty much the only conference that does that, unless there's a personal beef. Even Deion Sanders got into it with Shane Keeler. They didn't answer his questions, but they didn't take his credential.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
wild.
you mean down at LSU that like Brian Kelly didn't walk out and go, "Hey guys, how we doing? Yeah, I'm not answering questions about that." Okay, first question. Oh, it's about that. Let me just leave. And then the SID didn't come out and say, "Yeah, the university's not responding to questions." And Brian Kelly didn't walk back out and go, "Hey guys, how you doing?" Like James Franklin at Penn State.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It just
that's good for them though. Hey. Good for the LSU media. These coaches need to be held to the fire. Listen, I don't care. The coaches shouldn't be harassed at home. Coaches shouldn't be getting death threats. But God damn it, if you're making $10 million a year and you lose 45-6 or whatever they lost to Alabama at home, you should be held to the fire at a press conference. You should have to answer every fucking question we have. And one of the questions should be, what the fuck happened?
Oh, and I think somebody should have to do some explaining about CJ Hicks as well. And I'm not saying that as far as the video wise, I'm saying as far as playing time, the kid hasn't.
Well,
it's a big mystery. It's all a big mystery. And
I don't think it's a mystery this year. You've seen him on the field. Dude looks lost.
Yeah.
Now, there might be questions about why he hasn't been able to be developed into a player that is competent on the field, or why he hasn't switched positions, because when you watch the film, watch all 22 of the defense. When CJ Hicks is at linebacker, he's a liability. That's why he's not on the field, because he's not good. Now, I agree. You put him at rush end, he's pretty good. So why is he not just playing that? Why is he not just rotating with Jack Sawyer and JTT? Why is JTT not moving inside and letting CJ Hicks rush? I mean, why are there not better rotations? I mean, why are you not using his skill set? Obviously, he's not a linebacker. He can't play linebacker. That's proven. So quit trying to fit him in there because he's bad. Arvell Reese is better. Cody Simon's better. Literally every other linebacker is better.
So
but
that is what it is. But
anyways, we'll jump into the CFP now. Let's move on before I get too heated on Ohio State. But
can I add some quick notes here?
Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't have to really talk about it much. DJ Lagway most likely going to return for LSU. The LSU game, LSU Florida. I think that is, if I'm Brian Kelly, I think I need to have my guys completely locked in this week, because they're pretty much they're pretty much eliminated from the playoffs, and I don't know
not if you ask Heather Dinich.
We're not. But anyway,
a 3-loss SEC team should get in, she said. But yes, I agree. They have to be locked in, and I think this is obviously Billy Napier's job. Apparently, is safe. Don't come at me, Florida fans. I'm not the one who asked for it.
I'm just saying, give him a little more time, see what happens.
Yeah, well, there's 0% of Florida fans that are with you on that. But
there's like a small.
Okay, yeah, 0% is statistically impossible, probably. But
so whenever we're proven right, we'll revisit it. So Ole Miss flips Caleb, the Cunningham kid that was committed to Alabama, I guess, is what I'm told. The OU president comes out.
Oklahoma or Ohio?
Oklahoma.
All right, when you say OU, you gotta.
Wow, I'm sorry. Oklahoma AD comes out, gives Venables a vote of confidence that they're sticking with him through the transition to the SEC, I think them pushing Dylan Gabriel out the door was a bad decision because he lost to Kansas. And then the last thing I got is the Lincoln Riley and USC getting fined for the on-the-field coaching, a.k.a. Cliff Kingsbury.
Who had a headset on, was on the field. Didn't even try to hide it.
Yeah, instructing. They changed the rule, but it is what it is. And
when you talk about all that, those three programs you just brought up, right? You got Billy Napier, Brent Venables, and Lincoln Riley. Two of them have got the kiss of death, right, in the vote of confidence. Lincoln Riley, I assume, has the vote of confidence because they have 90 million reasons to keep him. But one of those three has to be fired by the end of the year, right?
No.
I mean, you have to. You can't keep
here's
all three of those programs are just ridiculous.
Here's the thing that that I talked to somebody today about this. I said, overwhelmingly you have quite a few coaches, and I named some names that are underperforming. And I said, what is the issue here? Are we going to get some movement and, some people, making changes at universities? And the person I talked to said no, because nobody is paying the buyouts anymore. They're not doing
I understand with Lincoln Riley, but Venables is what, 26 million? That's chump change.
But I was told no, because nobody wants to be Texas A&M.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just wait until your fan base gets so upset that they stop coming to games and you're not selling out, and then people stop watching. I mean, and it's the same thing. I know you guys talked about it. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's all. Sorry to interrupt here, but it's also on the ADs that give out these bad contracts. Brian Kelly has a bad contract. Jimbo Fisher had a bad contract. Billy's is stomachable, but you have that House versus NCAA coming in that, is an extra $25 million on the budget, and you got to figure out a way to pay for that.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but the fans don't. Fuck you. I'm a fan. I'm not going to the rowing games. Why don't you cut money elsewhere and give me a product I want to go spend my money on? I'm sorry. I don't give a shit about rifling. Stop putting subpar products on the field. And this is... Yeah, I understand that part of it, but you're going to have university... Listen, it's... so here's what I'll tell you. I think this is going to be bad for certain programs. I think programs that hold on to coaches that are proven to not be successful. Lincoln Riley, not going to be successful at USC, never will be. He's been given every opportunity to be, can't. So that's just a bad – I understand $90 million is a lot to eat. You're in Southern Cal. You've got money. You got to figure it out. Billy Napier, we'll see. I still think bad. He hasn't performed. Venables, same way. But – at the same time, the thing is, when you continuously put a bad product on the field, that's going to impact your bottom line too. And I'm going to relate it to this. Big noon kickoff and Fox. I get it. Ohio State's the cash cow. You're going to keep putting them at noon as long as the ratings keep staying high. But what you don't understand is that that's going to impact their ability to recruit high-level recruits. That's going to impact their revenue from outside of their TV contracts. That's going to impact a lot of other things. And when Ohio State can't get a top 5 class because they can't bring recruits from Texas into the state of Ohio for a late season game because every game starts at noon and the Texas players are in the state playoffs at 9 a.m. on Saturday, then you're going to have an issue when they can't sign those kids. And then guess what? The product on the field is going to get worse. Ohio State's going to not be as powerful. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have an 8-4 Ohio State team that you're going to be putting at noon every week because there's nobody else in the Big Ten that can carry the water. So you can keep playing this money game, but when the product on the field begins to suffer, the money's going to dry up. And when that happens, these programs that refuse to pay out buyouts, these TV networks that refuse to take a look at the bigger picture are going to suffer because of it. ESPN is going to be fine. Big money schools like Alabama and Georgia are going to be fine. Ohio State will be fine, but their recruiting might suffer if the Big Noon and Fox keeps putting their last 6 games of every single year at noon. Michigan games should always be at noon. I understand that. That's fine. Fox have that one. But if you tell me next year, Texas, week 1, if you tell me that's a noon game on Fox, if I'm Ohio State, I quit. You can't do that.
It's a double-sided coin here, and it may have the same face of it. You have Ohio State, but outside of Ohio State, who is the massive draw in the Big Ten?
Michigan was until this year.
So you have a bad Michigan team. You have a really good Ohio State team. I just don't think that me personally, if Fox had any nuts about them at all, they would have put Indiana in Ohio State at 7:30. I get it. The Blue Hairs don't
No, it has nothing to do with Blue Hairs. What it has to do with is Fox made a strategic decision to own the 12 o'clock window. They believe that is a smart decision because it outperforms every window when you compare all games, right? So when you compare the numbers for Big Noon kickoff, when it's Ohio State versus Indiana, when it's Ohio State versus Purdue, when it's Ohio State versus anybody, you're drawing anywhere from 8 to 15 million viewers, roughly around 10 million. Now, when you compare that number, just that number, not the average noon number, just the Big Noon kickoff number of 10 million viewers, to the average number of viewers at 3:30 and 7:30, Big Noon beats it. And that's what Fox is holding on to. But what they don't tell you is that's the average number of viewers for every 3:30 game. Not the 3:30 game on CBS between Alabama and Georgia. That game kicks the shit out of Big Noon. Now, not the 7:30 game between Notre Dame and Florida State. That number kicks the shit out of Ohio State, Purdue. But they're doing this because they want to own that window. And the only way they can own that window is to put Ohio State at it as much as possible because Ohio State is the only draw that they can have in that window. Oregon at home, you can't put it at noon because that's 9 a.m. USC at home, you can't put it noon. So your big money school is Ohio State. So they're going to put them at noon every single time, and it's going to fuck Ohio State in the long run. And if Ohio State had any balls, they would stand up and say, listen, I get it. We're the cash cow. We're cool. Give us 4 noon games a year, Big Noon kickoff. That's cool. But Texas next year has to be a night game. Penn State next year or whatever. You pick 1 or 2 games that have to be a night game. That's all we need. Because I'm telling you right now, it might not impact it. And I know Ryan Day says that it doesn't impact recruiting. He's lying to you, bold-faced, right? Because he doesn't want to rock the boat. I know coaches, and night games are recruiting cash cows. Why do you think Deuce Knight is still committed to LSU today? He went to a night game at LSU and saw LSU get absolutely fucked by Alabama. But the environment was incredible.
Are you talking about Underwood?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not Deuce Knight. I'm like, sorry, my bad.
I'm like,
yeah,
he's committed to Auburn, but he was
sorry. I got my top quarterback. Yeah, anyways. Yes, I meant Bryce Underwood. He's committed today to LSU. He was looking at flipping to Michigan. He went down to Death Valley, saw that environment, got around the fans, got involved, saw them lose 45-6 or whatever the hell it was, saw them get their shit pushed in, and still is committed to LSU because that is a fucking, like, that's where I want to play. If I'm a high school kid, I go to a night game at Death Valley. I want to play there. I go, Notre Dame just played Florida State, one of the worst teams in the goddamn country. Did you see the environment? Did you see the what it was? If I'm a kid, I want to play in that. Now, you send me to a noon game at Ohio State, Indiana. Is that really going to move the needle for me?
Okay, here's I got some TV numbers for you on the viewership side of it.
Mm-hmm.
The leader last week was LSU, Alabama at 7.9 million.
Okay.
Next one was Ole Miss, Georgia, 7.8 at 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes the noon window. Miami, Georgia Tech did 3.4.
Yeah.
Notre Dame, Florida State did 2.9. And mind you, Florida State
It was 1 and 9.
8. It was 1 and 9. Do
Yeah.
you know what the top performing Big Ten game was this week?
Probably Michigan, Indiana.
It's not on this list yet.
No, Ohio State, Purdue.
That's not on the list either.
No. Was there another good game? I don't know.
It's saying Iowa UCLA did 1.8.
I find that hard to believe. I guarantee you Purdue did. Ohio State, Purdue drew bigger than 1.8. I don't know where those. I mean, who knows? But all I'm saying is, last week's a bad because the big noon was Ohio State, Purdue. It was one of the worst games you could ever imagine. But even when you have the big games, like I know Ohio State, Penn State on big noon did about 10 million. But it still doesn't outperform. I think it was Georgia, Texas or something did 12. I mean, and it's not just about TV numbers. Like, I don't give a fuck how many TV viewers you get. I understand that's how you drive the money. But at the same time, in order for the product to be good on the field, you have to think about other things. And that's what I'm saying. And it's not fair to ask one school in a conference of 18 to carry the entire conference with them.
I got this is from footballscoop.com.
Okay.
And it's got it broken down for each network that's had the top games of the week.
Yeah.
That number one viewed games of the week. 15 on ABC, which is the ABC ESPN.
That's gonna be your night games.
That's your SEC games. And then CBS has 3, which are probably 3 Ohio State games.
Probably.
And then NBC has 1 and Fox has 2.
And NBC's 1 is Oregon, Ohio State.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
realistic. Yeah.
Realistic.
And that's but that's part of the reason Fox won't go after ABC ESPN. Is because they don't want to go head to head like that. But the problem is, listen, if I'm Ohio State, why am I even doing this? Like, fuck it. I'll sign a deal with Fox directly at this point. Pay me the entire amount. I'm the one driving all of your revenue anyways. Like, and you want to tell me that Notre Dame should join a conference for this?
Oh, no.
So that we can be on Fox Big Noon every day?
No.
Fuck that. We just had a 7:30 kickoff against Florida State that outdrew Ohio State, and it was a 1-9 Florida State team. Like, we get to, like, Notre Dame controls their shit and does it every week. And when NBC comes to them, they say, we're playing at night. And NBC says, yes, sir.
Yeah. The only time Notre Dame got moved was because of the Ohio State Oregon game, which that was basically
that was on NBC.
2 versus 3.
Yeah,
like, what do you want to do?
Yeah,
like,
that was on NBC, and I mean, whatever, that's fine. But majority of the time, NBC lets Notre Dame pick when they want to play, like, and they get damn near the same money as everybody else. I'm telling you, it's going to hurt Ohio State in the long run if this continues. But anyways, not to get too much into that, I just that spurred some conversation. Absolutely, David. The AD needs to step up. And the thing is the problem that you have with Ohio State right now is the AD got thrown into a situation where he has no leverage because Ohio State and the Big Ten bent the knee to Fox. And they signed a 3-network deal with Fox, NBC, and CBS to try to get the most money. And Fox has exclusivity to pick what matchup they want. And Fox gets to decide the start time regardless of what they say. Now, if you're a good AD, which I think Ross Bjork is a good AD, you're going to go drop your nuts on the table and be like, hey, listen, we're making you all the money. Fucking put Penn State at noon this week. We're playing Texas. We're going night. And which Fox isn't. The thing is Fox isn't going to give up that matchup. And until you go in and you tell Fox, fucking nut up, put us at 7:30 on Fox. Tell Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt to take a fucking Red Bull, stay up a little later, and call a night game.
Well, I just look at the slate that, you know, the the Big Ten has to pick from. And like you look at it, okay, you're having your, Friday night game, which is UCLA Washington. I get it. You can play that game at 9:00 on a Friday night and no one cares because high school football for most people is over now. So you look at it, you have Ohio State, Northwestern at noon. That's a snoozer.
Yeah, that's on Big Ten Network too.
Then FS1 has Michigan State, Illinois at 2:30. You watching that? I'm not watching that.
No.
Penn State plays Purdue at 3:30 on CBS.
Yeah, poor CBS.
Explain that.
Go through the rest of the slate. I'll explain it. Penn State's number 4 in the country. That's why.
And then Nebraska plays USC, which USC has the losing record. I'd be more apt to watch Nebraska USC than I would Penn State Purdue.
Yeah, but Penn State's number 4 in the country. I mean, that's the only reason. And nobody gives a fuck about USC or Nebraska anymore. They both suck.
Rutgers, Maryland at 6:00 on FS1. You watching that?
No.
I like Mike Loxley, but I'm not watching a 4-5 team play a 5-4 team.
Nope. No, and that the networks just need to get it together. I mean, it just Fox just needs to actually try. Like, I mean, CBS isn't afraid to go up against NBC, and CBS isn't afraid to go up against ESPN at night.
And then Oregon has Wisconsin at 7:30.
Well, it's in Oregon, right? So of course.
No, it's a Wisconsin.
Fuck. Put that shit at noon. What are we doing?
Well,
where's Big Noon?
Then you have Big Noon. Colorado's Big Noon this week.
Oh, they went Big 12. Or whatever.
So if you look at the SEC slate of games, they're not the greatest, but I bet.
What are you talking about? You got
Georgia, Tennessee's the best game.
Yeah, Georgia, Tennessee, and then what? Who's LSU play? Florida, LSU.
Florida, LSU, but yeah.
You got South Carolina, Missouri, man. Those are 2 ranked teams.
Drink versus the Mayo, man.
Yes. But anyway, let's get into the rankings real quick. We're getting sidetracked today. Got a lot going on, but did you watch the college football rankings last night? I did. I want to throw this up because David did bring it up. And we obviously put out our rankings yesterday afternoon, evening, which were not as accurate as week 1, I will say. I think my rankings or our rankings were better than what the committee did, but I will give you my reasons why here in a minute. But what were your thoughts on the rankings initially? And here, actually, let me pull them up and throw them on the screen so we know what we're talking about.
I got some feelings on this, and you want me to run through mine real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Okay. No argument with Oregon. 0.
No, I don't think anybody does.
The argument with Texas is, I think if Texas loses to A&M, they're out. Because if you take the name off the ledger and look at their schedule and compare it to Penn State's, it's the same thing.
I could say that about a couple different schedules on here. I would say, honestly, and I'd have to look it up, the strength of schedule, but, I mean, Texas hasn't played a better schedule, hasn't beat, I guess. They've played a better schedule. They haven't beat better opponents than Penn State. They haven't beat better opponents than Indiana. They haven't beat better opponents than...
It's, for the most part, it's...
BYU, Miami.
BYU's got that win over SMU.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean... BYU's schedule is not harder than Texas's, or their wins aren't better. But I'm just saying, I mean, Texas hasn't beat anybody with a pulse.
But I think there's a lot of terrible schedules in the playoffs this year.
I think there's a lot of terrible teams in the country this year. So that makes sense.
The thing with me is everybody keeps on wanting to say Bama's not any good and Georgia's not any good. And then
Yeah, well,
2 weeks ago, Ole Miss was they were on quit watch, and then they beat Georgia at home, and now Ole Miss is the darling of the college football playoff. Like I watch a lot of it, and a lot of people talk about it, and it's just like now Miami's on the ropes, and this team's falling apart, and it's just like, well, if nobody's any fucking good, then what are we doing this for?
Yeah. Well, so here's what I'll tell you. Just Texas specifically, and just overall general feeling about all the rankings as a whole. The committee is leaning heavily into the eye test. They are leaning, and let me explain why. They are leaning heavily into who they think plays the best football, right? That's why Texas is number 2. I mean, seeded number 3 overall. That's why Miami didn't fall any further than they did. That's why Indiana isn't ranked any higher than they are. That's why you've got teams like, let's see, I'd have to pull up the full rankings, but that's why you got teams like LSU still in it. You got teams like Missouri ranked because they're leaning heavily on who they think the best teams are, not so much the resume. They aren't banking on the resume because right now, if you look at resume, obviously they got the number 1 and 2 teams right, Oregon and Ohio State. By far, I think best resumes in college football with the least amount of losses. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really argue that. Now, Penn State over Indiana, that's purely because they think they're a better football team. That has nothing to do with resume.
And
Penn State's resume is no better than Indiana's, other than they have a 7-point loss to Ohio State, but they have a loss.
Yeah. And see, this is my issue with the rankings. They kept Georgia out on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say Georgia beats Tennessee, Tennessee's out then.
Are they?
Yeah, Tennessee's. Who's Tennessee beat this year besides Alabama?
Well, okay. Well, then who's anybody beat beside the best team that they beat? Like who's Oregon beat besides Ohio State?
Nobody.
Yeah. Who's
Ohio State beat nobody.
Yeah. Who's Alabama beat other than Georgia?
They got that big win on the road at LSU.
Yeah. Okay. Who's Ole Miss beat other than Georgia?
I mean, Ole Miss has a bad non-con schedule. And
they have a bad schedule.
And the issue that I have with Ole Miss is that they have that loss to Kentucky, and Tennessee also has that loss to Arkansas.
Yeah, but I'm just telling you, here's what's going to happen. If I think Nico's not going to play Saturday.
Yeah,
and I think Tennessee loses to Georgia, and all of a sudden they're a 2-loss SEC team. And they have probably a close loss to Georgia because Carson Beck likes to throw to the other team. And so they'll have a bad loss to Arkansas. No qualms about that. But then they'll have a close loss to a good Georgia team without their starting quarterback as their second loss. Now they have an argument to stay in.
Well, somebody's got to fall out because you got to put Georgia in.
Yeah, what do you mean? They'll kick fucking Indiana out when they lose to Ohio State.
But that's not for another 2 weeks. I think Indiana gets in even if they lose to Ohio State.
I think they should. I think you're going to have a lot of people arguing that a 2-loss Tennessee is better than a 1-loss Indiana. Because Tennessee has that great win over Alabama.
I don't think a Alabama win absolves you of an Arkansas loss.
I don't disagree. But then you'll say that a 2-loss Tennessee is better than a 1-loss Notre Dame.
Notre Dame's different when it comes to this because you have a loss.
I'm just setting the scene for you.
I'm saying that.
And wait until Texas loses to Texas A&M, and then you have fucking chaos.
Oh, because that's why I said I think if Texas loses another game, they're out.
But the committee loves Texas because they think they're one of the best teams. So I'm just out. It could turn into straight chaos. If you don't want chaos, You need Tennessee to beat Georgia, Texas to beat A&M.
I just think that, and I don't even know why Boise State is ranked 12th, because they're not the best Group of 5 team.
Who is?
Tulane, and it's not even close.
Well, you can't put Tulane over Boise.
I think you definitely can.
Why? How many losses does Tulane have?
Tulane's got 2. They got on the
Okay,
road
they're
at
out.
on the road at Oklahoma and
Okay, bad
Kansas
loss.
State.
2 bad losses.
They beat Kansas State, beat them by a touchdown, but there was a shitty pass interference call. But I don't care. I don't think Boise State's any good outside of
They almost beat Oregon
at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I'm just saying they got a more impressive resume than Tulane.
I think Tulane's going to win the American going away, but
that's fine.
I think
there's no way Tulane gets in over Boise if they both run the table. Boise's in.
Hopefully Boise catches an L, because I don't want to see them in the playoffs, because I don't think they're any good.
But let's talk about Alabama real quick. How do you rank Alabama? Because I had them right about where they were ranked, but I can see the argument for both sides.
The problem you have right now is Alabama
has 2 really impressive wins.
Yeah, they do.
They have 2 really impressive wins over Georgia and LSU. I don't think LSU is that good, but they're good enough to be considered a decent win. Georgia's obviously a pretty good team, but Georgia's not as good as people think. They just see the G.
I think
then you have 2 losses, and one of them is Tennessee, who's a good team. And then you have Vandy. I don't know. I just don't know how to rank Alabama.
The problem with Bama is that they got smacked in the head when they played Vandy. But I also think that game came down to coaching, and I think that Clark Lee and Jerry Kill are really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was just like at the end of last year, everybody kept on saying, well, we got to fire Clark Lee. Like, okay, well, who are you going to get? Because they're not playing the James Franklin game anymore where they let anybody in. That's the only reason Franklin won at Vanderbilt, is because he got some exemptions.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he won.
Overall, I understand that. And Franklin's proven himself to be exactly what he is. And so that's why, if you look at this, Ole Miss walks to the semis.
Oh,
they don't even have to run. Like, they can just take a day off.
That's why I think this is hard to do, because there's no data behind this. This is the first time that they've had to rank 12 teams.
They've always ranked 25 teams, but they just didn't care as much about the top 14 or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have SMU and Georgia, and I think that you're down to the ACC and Big 12 are 1-bid leagues.
Unless, as I'm telling you, so here's where it gets interesting, and there's a lot of ways it gets interesting, and this brings up David's comment. Yeah, there's so many games to be played. It's not going to look anything like this. I think you got a couple schools like Notre Dame. I think will hold pat and kind of finish the season. They'll run the table. I think they will. I think they will, the way they're playing right now. I think Boise State runs the table. I think Ole Miss runs the table until they get to the SEC title game. I think they have, I forget who it is, somebody in Mississippi
I don't
State.
even think that they could play in it.
No, they can.
No, they have 2 losses in conference.
Yeah, so will Texas if Texas loses to A&M. So will Georgia. So will, there's a lot of schools that will have 2 losses in the conference. Georgia, if Georgia beats Tennessee, then Georgia and Tennessee both have 2 losses in the conference. A&M beats Texas, then Texas and Bama also have 2 losses in the conference. LSU has 2 losses in the conference, and Ole Miss. There's 6 teams with 2 losses.
So think of it this way. A&M is on the outside looking in, right?
Unless they beat Texas.
So they beat Texas, and let's say Ole Miss wins out and Georgia wins out.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have 6 or 7 teams with 2 losses at the top of the conference.
You're going to have – how would that shake out? You could potentially have – A&M could win the SEC.
Yeah. The SEC, like David just said, the tiebreaker will come into play. And the thing about the tiebreaker in the SEC, I know what it is. So the first thing is head-to-head of the tied teams. When there's 7 of them, that's going to be impossible. And then it comes to winning percentage versus the SEC or something like that, which will be the same, or I forget. And then it'll come back to record versus highest-ranked SEC teams. And I mean, it just comes down to a bunch of shit that's just impossible to forecast. But I believe I read that if A&M beats Texas, Georgia beats Tennessee, then I think the 2 teams that play for the SEC title would be A&M and Ole Miss.
I think so.
I believe. I don't quote me on that because I like I said, I don't know if anybody really knows, but I think that's what I read, that if it goes complete chaos mode, that's what it would be. And then you'd have A&M, a 3-loss team with a potential automatic first-round bye.
And here's
or SEC wouldn't even get a first-round bye. Because if A&M at 3 losses is ranked lower than the Big 12 champion, the ACC champion, and the Big 10 champion, and the Group of 5 champion, then they would be out. They wouldn't be out, but they would be a lower seed, so they wouldn't get a first-round bye, which would be wild.
Your Group of 5 team gets a bye?
Yeah. If Boise State jumps Miami or SMU in the rankings, and they all and they all win their conference, it's not the Power 4 conference champions automatically get a bye. It's the top ranked conference champions get a bye. So you could potentially have it be Big 10, ACC, Big 12, and Group of 5 champion get a bye, and the SEC is playing in the first round. Or you could have it be SEC, Big 10, ACC, and Group of 5, and the ACC champions playing in the first round.
Oh man,
Yeah, it gets real sticky real quick. But all that to be said, there's a lot of football left to be played. But I think what's going to be super interesting, and I think I'm telling you right now, just based off of how the committee's ranking people, I think that Miami's not out if they go to the ACC title game and lose a close game to SMU. You might get 2 ACC schools, and that'll just fuck even more up.
Here's something that is – I've been thinking about this. When we look at the rankings when it comes to Penn State, is Ole Miss better than Penn State?
Yes.
Is Alabama better than Penn State?
Yes.
Is Tennessee better than Penn State?
Yes.
What about Notre Dame?
I think that would be a great game.
So wouldn't it be more advantageous? Yeah. Now you see what I'm getting at here, right?
Yeah, just to rank people.
You're stuck with Ohio State, Boise for now.
As of right now, yeah.
So that stinks. So
I mean, for who? It doesn't stink for Ohio State.
Well, let's say Ohio State wins the Big Ten. They're the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah.
So let's think of it this way. In order for the committee to do the TV thing, do you think they're going to gerrymander the matchups so they don't get SEC versus SEC? Because I think that's going to happen.
I think it's going to be really tough to do that.
Because I think that's why Georgia is not in there, because that's their ace up the sleeve if they win.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be really tough to do, though, because
could you
at the end
imagine
of the day, if you play this out, like let's just run through this real quick. All right, let's say I'm going to say Notre Dame beats Tennessee. It doesn't matter either one you pick.
I don't think you're going to see Tennessee there. I think that's Georgia, and I think for the TV numbers,
Georgia won't be that high. Here's what I think happens. Well, if Georgia beats Tennessee, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Because, like, let's say Georgia beats Tennessee. We add Georgia and take Tennessee out. Could
Yeah.
you imagine the TV number that would do on, like, Saturday night? Georgia, Tennessee, or Georgia, Notre Dame on the road at Georgia, or Georgia on the road in South Bend in
It'd be
December.
incredible. Well, right now, the cool thing about the rankings right now is you have Ole Miss going to Penn State and Alabama going to Indiana. And
Oh,
if
yeah.
let's say you flip Notre Dame, Tennessee, let's say Notre Dame beats Army, jumps a spot, Georgia beats Tennessee in a close game, gets back up to 9. Then you have Notre Dame, Georgia in Notre Dame, and you have 3 Southern schools coming up to the North for the first round. That's must-see TV right there. I mean, that's December 20th and 21st. You're talking about snowy games in the North that's what people wanted to see for years. That's incredible cinema right there. But let's run through it real quick though. Okay, so you got Miami, or you got, let's say this is Georgia or Tennessee playing Notre Dame. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, it doesn't matter who wins that game, but let's say the SEC school wins, because a lot of people are going to pick that. Then you got Tennessee, Oregon, or Georgia, Oregon. Great matchup. Well, I'm going to say that Oregon's a better team. Oregon wins that game, right? Then you go over to this side, and you got Indiana, Alabama. You're taking Bama, right? I'm taking Bama for sure.
That would be the most like letdown in the history of Alabama if that happened.
Yeah, so Bama wins and plays Texas. Ole Miss beats Penn State, plays BYU, and then Ohio State beats Boise, plays Miami. Which Ohio State, Miami, that's fucking gold if you're a TV network.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so now you got Oregon, Georgia, or Tennessee. I'm going to say that Oregon wins that game because I think Oregon's better than both of them. Now you got Oregon in the Final Four. Ohio State, Miami, I think Ohio State wins that game. Now you got Ohio State in the Final Four. Ole Miss, BYU, Ole Miss wins. Texas, Alabama, I don't care. Pick one. Let's say Texas.
Yeah.
Now you've got Oregon versus Ohio State for a third time this year. You got Ole Miss, Texas. It's SEC versus Big Ten to find out who wins the Natty. It's AFC, NFC. Like, we just did a bunch of shit to find the 2 best teams in the 2 biggest conferences to play each other again, or in Ole Miss, Texas time, first time, but to decide who's going to play for the national title. Like, the way it's set up, you're going to end up with SEC, Big Ten.
I mean, Miami could maybe throw a wrench in
Shut
here.
the fuck up. Miami's not beating Ohio State.
Oregon. I'm not saying never.
You can lock. I'm saying never. Have you seen that defense? Ohio State and Oregon put up 50.
Well, who would have thought Urban Meyer would have got blown out by Purdue?
Okay, that's different than a college football playoff game.
I just think it's the game of college football, and
that's very different. Trust me.
I think
Urban Meyer never would have gotten blown out by a playoff game.
But you know what I'm saying, though.
Yeah,
I'm just saying we cannot say never ever, because
Oregon and Ohio State are pretty much locked in at this position, unless Ohio State fucks around and loses to Indiana. Oregon's going to be 1, Ohio State's going to be 5, or vice versa. Right? We can pretty much agree on that. Because those are going to be the 1 and 2 teams pretty much no matter what. Even if they lose in the Big Ten title game, they're not dropping below 5.
Here's my thing. I think we have a lot to get sorted out.
It's going to be fun. It is going to be so
weeks.
fun, though. This is going to be so fun. And the best part is, that's why you play the games, right?
Yeah.
Because who knows? I'm telling you right now, it looks like Ole Miss is going to walk to the semis if it ended today. But James Franklin might fuck around and win a playoff game, and that throws a whole wrench in everything. So it's going to be fun. And, it's interesting. And I do want to say, just because I keep ranking them high, and I'm going to continue to rank them high until they lose to Notre Dame, what the committee is doing to the service academy, aka Army, is fucking criminal.
Well, it's because they're holding who Army's playing against them, unlike what they've done with Penn State, unlike what they've
Indiana,
done
Texas.
with Boise, Texas, Indiana.
Yeah.
They're for some reason they're the only ones not getting any legitimate run.
Does it hurt them to rank them at like 18, like 24? Are you kidding me? They're undefeated and being ranked below SEC teams that don't have a fucking any business being ranked. Like Missouri's a bad football team. Get them the fuck out of here.
Yeah, Missouri's done. A team that wishes that they had a couple things back is, I guarantee you, it's South Carolina.
South Carolina, see, I know that they were 22 or 21 or something like that.
But they got 3 losses. But you know, if you go back through, I'm with you, David.
Go Army, except for when they play Notre Dame. Yeah, absolutely.
But with South Carolina, I got to look up their losses, and then we got to wrap this thing up here.
Yeah.
South Carolina lost.
We'll talk a little Notre Dame on Friday, but we didn't get to it today. Got a little sidetracked. But Notre Dame fucked Florida State up, so not much to talk about there.
Yeah, and then we fire Alex Atkins. This is that is a joke. Mike Norvell is a joke.
You got to do something. You're 1-9.
How is firing the quote-unquote offensive coordinator that doesn't call plays, how is firing him going to help you? You're the one calling the plays. You're the one that signed the quarterback.
Somebody had to get their head chopped off. Ned Stark didn't do anything wrong, but he still got fucking decapitated.
That is an extreme example, Carter. So just real quick, South Carolina lost by field goal to LSU. They got their ass kicked by Ole Miss, and then they lost by 2 to Bama. 5 points is the difference between 6-3 and 6-3 and
7,
it's
8-1.
8-1 and in the playoffs. So I think all things being
South Carolina, I have no problem with them being ranked. Missouri sucks.
We're gonna find out because they play Missouri this week.
Well, fuck.
So
hopefully Missouri wins. That'd be great.
We didn't do a good job of resetting the show, but if you guys are hanging out this long with us, we're gonna go ahead and wrap here. Is that cool, Carter?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap. If you're out there watching on Twitter or on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button and help us grow this channel. That's what we're trying to do here, is just talk some college football. Like and subscribe helps us out a ton. We got Maction going on right now, and we will see you back tomorrow and Friday, and then I probably won't see you guys until Tuesday, maybe, but we'll see. Me and Carter got to talk about it. So, with that being said, everybody have a good night. Carter, you might have to end this one since I showed up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's all good. Yeah. Have a good night, everybody. Stay cool.